Appreciate it, Ryan. So this is going to be recorded just in case we want to share. So hopefully, if anybody has any issues, let us know. But this will be sent out so students have access to it. Dr. Danvers, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Greetings, everybody.
Do you have any words that we'd like to pass on prior to us beginning?
I would just like to say hello to everybody. And Connor and Tree, you both have graduated, have you not?
Yep.
So welcome back. Are you going to share your experiences with us this evening?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I'm excited to hear about them.
We appreciate it, Dr. Danvers. Appreciate the support too. So for those of you who don't know, we have 4 panelists tonight. Tree, Taylor, Connor, and Olivia. 2 of them still current students, 2 of them alumni. So you're going to get a really cool perspective tonight on their experiences as interns and how that helped transition them to the real world. And they're going to share with you ups, downs, tips, tricks, resources, things that they wish they knew. So we have a series of questions that we're going to go through for each panelist. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll try to work those in as well as we get closer towards the end. We expect this to be about 45 minutes to 50 minutes, an hour max, just to give you an idea. So without any further ado, we'll just jump right in. What I'd like to do is I'll just call on each panelist to please provide a short introduction, your name, what your major was, when you graduated or what your status is, and then a little bit about what you're doing right now, and then your internship experience, most importantly. So I will begin, we'll say ladies first, and we'll start with Olivia.
Somehow I knew I was going to go first. Hi, I'm Olivia Keltz. I was a 2020 graduate for my undergrad. I majored in marketing, human resources, and management, so triple major, with a minor in data analytics. And I'm also currently in my master's degree in data analytics, and I'll graduate again in May with my master's. I had 3 different internships during my undergrad. So I started with my marketing internship at Chartwells, which is the food service on campus. And I actually kept that internship from sophomore year all the way until I graduated or got sent home from school because of COVID. And then I was also the marketing intern at Burns & Burns Insurance, which is right across the street from Still Hall. And I was the marketing intern at Gold Eagle Inn, which was in Brookville. So I commuted a little bit for that. Currently, I am the marketing specialist at Burns & Burns Insurance. Like I said, that's the one right across from Still Hall. So that internship actually turned into a full-time job for me. So, and I love it. And I don't know, do you want me to go into some of my duties of what I'm doing?
That sounds good.
Okay. So as a marketing specialist, I handle all of the social media accounts for Burns & Burns, and we have 9 branches. So I'm located in Clarion, but I take care of things for all 9 offices. I manage all of our agent sales data, which is kind of where the data analytics comes into play. So I handle a lot of numbers. I also do like internal affairs and some HR things, and also like a lot of newsletters, like internal things and like morale. And then I produce a lot of promotional content and videos. We're getting big into video right now. We think it's helping with our advertising. And then I do all the advertising, the sponsorships, the donations, the events, and all of our merchandise as well. So I wear a lot of different hats at Burns & Burns, but I really like it.
Appreciate it, Olivia. Using all those degrees, that's for sure.
Yeah, trying.
All right, Taylor, go ahead.
All right, so I'm Taylor Mahan. I recently, in this past May, graduated with my bachelor's in accounting with a minor in finance, and now I am in the last semester of my MBA program here with a concentration in accounting, because there's never too much accounting. But so I'm very excited to graduating this May with my master's. So career-wise, sorry, let's see here. So right now, I guess, I'm currently working for Schneider, which is actually one of my internships that I had. So I guess starting with all of my internships, I've had 4 different ones throughout college. The first one was freshman year at the SBDC. I started as, it was basically a consulting intern, just kind of helping with building business plans for small businesses and little things like that, but definitely educational on the business process there. After that, I did it was an industry accounting internship at Pitt, Ohio. And then I did a tax internship at McKinley Company in Brookville, actually similar to Olivia, so a little from away from Clarion, and then the most recent, I've done the tax internship at Schneider, which also has turned into a full-time offer for me. So it's really nice how that worked out and everything. But
Excellent. Perfect. Thanks, Tay. All right. We'll go Tree, and then we'll finish strong with Connor. Go ahead, Tree.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tree Zuzio. I graduated in 2020 with a double major in business management and political science. I am currently, well, I guess I'll go to the internship first. For my program, I intern with the Department of Community and Economic Development for the state of Pennsylvania in the Governor's Center for Local Government. A lot of words there, a lot of acronyms too. Always a lot of fun. I am currently a master's degree student at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, mastering in in social policy, which is way to develop rules, regulations, laws, way to change the world by looking at it from a humanistic perspective, and the main differentiation between public policy, which is the more normal route when it comes to working for government. I am also the research director for a local city council campaign in Harrisburg, which is where I live, but I'm sure I'll get into that later.
Excellent. Thanks, Tree. Go ahead, Connor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Connor Yost. I was a 2020 December grad at Clarion. I spent 3.5 years there, where I majored in real estate and personal finance. So those were my expertise. While at Clarion, I had a great time. Just like everybody else here, I know we all had a good time, but we did spend a lot of time working. Did some stuff with Rho Epsilon, the FMA club, and Student Senate, CSA. So after that, I kept myself busy. I did get one internship when COVID happened. So I had a appraisal internship / apprenticeship lined up. That was canceled because we couldn't do the in-person stuff. And so luckily I was signed up through Handshake, and Handshake sent me out this random email and said, hey, apply at this internship. I was like, okay, I'll apply. I did, I got it, and it was with a company called Ryan. And so Ryan, it's this tax firm that deals with business taxes, not personal, it's just business tax. So got the internship, did it all commute, based in Pittsburgh, but it was all remote from my home, and did that through the summer. They offered me a position at the end of summer, and I took that and started working there in January. It's a great company. The internship really helped me get to up to speed with the real world, because there's definitely a ticking pace that picks up from school to work life. The emails, just the daily work and cycle is a lot different than what it is in school. I mean, school, yes, it's tough and you got a lot of study and a lot of homework, but it really picks up once you get out of that setting. So that was a great transition for me, that having that internship and getting ready to step up. So that's was a benefit to me.
Perfect. Thank you, Connor. So the next question we're going to have for the group is, when did you begin the internship process? And what I really want you to reflect on is, would you have done anything differently? Would you have started earlier? Do you think you did it at the right time? Connor shared his story of wasn't his fault, right? But COVID, the world shut down, right? And that affected some things, and that's real life. So, when did you start your internship process? What class, did a class prompt you to do it? What year were you? And then when would you encourage, now through that you went through it, other students to begin the process? So we'll start with Taylor, and then move our way to Tree, Connor, and then end with Olivia this time. So go ahead, Tay.
All right. So my first one was at the SBDC, and so I started freshman year. As Josh knows, I was in his office probably nonstop as a freshman because, I had no idea when to start doing any of this or how to start doing any of this. So thankfully, I definitely would suggest going to the career services office as early on in your college career as you can. And it's never too early to start making a plan because then he kind of showed me like, okay, this is what you should be focusing on. And there's different opportunities, and also did like mock interviews to help me with my interview at the SBDC because I had never actually interviewed for anything like that before or had to make a resume besides like the one I had in high school or something. So, but yeah, so I definitely started freshman year and then continually was in his office all 4 years, just trying to figure out if I was on track or what I should be doing and stuff. So I would highly recommend doing that. That's what they're there for. You're not bothering them, and it's an extremely useful resource. So.
Okay, so we heard Taylor, she had an internship each year. So she jumped right in, but that's not always the common, right? She's not necessarily the common or typical student. So you could see that it's never too early to start. The earlier you start, the earlier you can create the game plan. So that's a good perspective, Taylor. What about you, Tree? When did you begin?
So I didn't start looking for an internship until my junior year, and I had it the summer after my junior year, before my senior year, before COVID and all that fun stuff. So I was in person, and I would suggest starting earlier. I really loved my internship experience. I love all the people that I met while I was there. It really helped expand my network, and I think starting earlier would have benefited me a great deal. And I feel as though a lot of people don't see that like their freshman, sophomore year. Like, I don't have any experience yet. I haven't had all the core classes yet. There are internships that are always looking for people. And some internships can't fill that, whether it's just a local thing, any experience that you can get is optimal for applying for jobs in the future. So I'd highly suggest starting earlier than I did. I was slacking a little bit, but that's okay.
That is not true. No, you weren't. Let me kind of tell you, the typical student usually obtains an internship around their junior year. So Tree was right on track, right? So what you want to think about, though, is it depends on the cycle. Accounting is very different than, we'll say, management or HR, where accounting, they typically start in the fall semester to fill the position the next summer. So it's really important to work with individuals like shamefully myself, right? Shameful plug, myself, that can work you through that process because we understand that cycle. So if, let's say, Taylor came in March for the summer, it's not that she wouldn't have found something. It just might have been much more difficult for her to find something because most of them would likely be taken, especially like the big four, which we knew she was targeting. So we had to help her get there sooner. So it's a good perspective, Tree. You were on track, buddy. All worked out for you. So Connor, what about you? When did you begin?
Okay, I started my sophomore year. I actually applied at the internship that I had, got this in my junior year, applied there, didn't get it. So I just worked a summer job at a manufacturing plant, which oddly enough was really beneficial for me for what I do now, because now I understand somewhat of the workings of a machine shop and how manufacturing is worked and laid out and stuff like that. So I can understand some of the obsolescence in those buildings, which helps me with the tax. But anyways, sorry. So did that sophomore year, didn't get it. And then junior year, I actually was networking with some appraisers and through Rho Epsilon. So clubs helped me get in touch with professionals in the real world, which led to opportunities. So that's where I got a lot of my opportunities, was through that. So I would suggest joining your professional clubs if they're still running and still, having those connections. So
That's right. It's a good point, Connor, right? A lot, like 80-something% of jobs are filled through network, right? So that there's less jobs posted than are actually out there because think about it, right? If you connect with one of us, we could say, yeah, we know somebody who's looking for a position and I can kind of get you in. We always say the side door, where most people have to walk in the front door. We'll try to get you in the side door through a network or a connection. And Connor just gave a really good example of that. So how about you, Olivia? When did you kind of navigate your process of finding your 3 different internships?
Well, my first one was in the fall of my sophomore year, and I can't honestly remember how I found out about it. This is the Chartwells internship. I think it was from an email that was blasted out to like marketing majors or something. But I recognized the manager's name. It was Kelly Duncan, and she was in the American Marketing Association, which I was also a part of. She graduated a few years ahead of me. And I recognized her name and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead. Like, I thought sophomore year was a little early to be doing an internship, but I was very comfortable like with my classes and like the workload I had and my current job, which I worked in the business college office, in the dean's office as well. So there were times when I had 4 jobs. So my advice will eventually be time management, but I'll get to that later. So definitely it was a regular interview process. I went to Eagle Commons and interviewed with Kelly. You know, she asked me a bunch of questions like normal. I tried to dress up the best I could and then found out later that I had gotten it. My second internship was, I believe, with Burns & Burns, and that was actually not till my senior year. And I had actually applied for a different internship for the summer before my senior year, and I didn't get it. And the interview process was pretty lengthy for that one. And this is the UPMC one, Josh, where they kind of have like these really interesting questions, and you have to record yourself answering them and then turn them in. And then eventually you get, sorry, my phone is buzzing. You eventually get through to an in-person interview, but I couldn't get to Pittsburgh because I had a job at a bank over the summer. And so we did it kind of over Zoom or whatever they use, like Microsoft Teams or something. And then I found out I didn't get it and I was devastated as normal. And then this Burns & Burns opportunity came along and I went in and I interviewed. And this was also from an email blast to marketing majors or business majors. And I decided to go in and interview, even though I didn't want to work for insurance because I thought that would be boring. But I went in and I met my boss, Alexis, and she was like so bubbly and ecstatic. And it was like before 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm not a morning person, but she made me like actually want to work there. And that's the reason like I work at Burns & Burns now, was because she made it feel like exciting to come to work and like so happy, which I'd never really experienced at work before. So that was really nice. And then the Gold Eagle internship, this is at like a motel, like a really dingy, like truckers motel. And they have a like upscale restaurant, which actually is now demolished, both parts. So that's okay. But how I got to that internship was through a connection with the SBDC, Jason Strom. And that was through my marketing research class, one of my upper level marketing classes with Dr. Singh. And we had to go actually to the SBDC and work with them on a project for a company in town, like a local store. We worked with FL Crooks and it was a good experience, but it was a pain to have to go all the way out to the SBDC because at the time it was out by Walmart here in Clarion. But he just came up to me and he's like, Olivia, I think you'd be a good fit. And the Gold Eagle really needs some help with their marketing. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, I already have 3 jobs and I don't know if I can fit it into my schedule as a senior, but sure, I'll give it a shot. And it was actually the job that like paid me the most over the summer before my senior year. So it's a good experience, but now it's gone.
Literally, it is gone. Physically, it is gone. Okay. Perfect. We appreciate that. So now what we're going to transition into is, what do you think the most challenging part of the internship process was for you? So it could be any part as you reflect back. What was that challenging component? Was it was it finding it, the interview, something you didn't know in the internship? What do you think was the challenging part? So we'll start with Tree, transition to Connor, Olivia, and then end with Taylor.
So for me, it's rather interesting. As most of you already know, I'm a very outgoing person, enjoy talking to people. My issue is I don't like asking people for things. So when it comes to talking to professors or bothering Josh in his office, I know it's not bothering, but asking for resume help and things along those lines, I find that very awkward. Or asking a professor for a letter of recommendation, or asking a member of my network to help me find a job or something along those lines. Though, for me, that's terribly awkward. I find it uncomfortable, but I've been getting better at it because I realize one of the main components of asking someone for something is paying it forward or paying it off later down the road, helping someone else out who is in your shoes at that particular point in time. And so as alumni, as we're here tonight, we're trying to help other people develop those skills. And, yes, it is awkward in the moment when you're asking for that help, but, over time, that awkwardness goes away and the people you're asking really want to help you. And that's something I don't think a lot of people understand. And that was probably the most difficult part for me.
That's great. That's really good reflection, Tree. And I will say that, you're all in an interesting place. Believe it or not, everybody that works for the university, they like students and they want to help you, right? That's why we're here. We want you to be successful. So taking advantage of at least the resources here are impactful because we can connect you with resources outside of the institution, like these wonderful, for most, alumni or soon to be alumni that are here tonight that are speaking with you. Because they understood the journey and they want to help students so you don't go through the same thing that they went through, essentially. That's part of giving back. I think that's great, Tree. What about you, Connor? What was challenging in your process?
Wow, that hit the nail on the head there. Pride comes into play when you start an internship and you want to make a good impression and show them like, hey, I did study and I did put the time in and I know what I'm talking about. But there is just knowledge and then application. There's just a gap there sometimes, and it's hard to ask your superiors questions that you think you should know the answer to, or you think you would know, but you just have to ask them. I'm telling you, it stinks because you get pushed down. You're like, oh, I should know that. Like it's so easy, it's simple, but you just don't know. And I think that is one of the hardest things was to get used to asking for help. And didn't mean to piggyback off you, Tree, but that was perfect.
It's again a great point. Something a lot of people struggle with. Even as you transition into your professional career, right? You have this expectation that you're hired to do the job, but that doesn't mean you understand the process fully. Would you rather ask for help or do something wrong and get reprimanded after the fact, right? So you got to kind of balance that. So asking for help is a powerful skill that you can learn, and it starts now in the classroom. You're struggling with something, there's professors there for a reason to help you through that process, or a career professional would help you through a resume review, whatever that might be. So again, 2 great points so far. Olivia, what was your most challenging part?
Well, first, I guess the most challenging part was feeling like I was good enough for the job. And I think that's a part of imposter syndrome, where I feel like I don't know enough or I'm not ready to have a big girl job. But so gaining that confidence to feel like you should be there, you should be in that interview and you deserve the job. And then the next hardest part was the one time I got rejected. That really knocked me down. But you're not too good or too bad for any job. That's how I felt, especially about the Gold Eagle. It was challenging for me in a sense that it was a dingy motel, guys. It was not nice. And I didn't really want to be associated with it, but I knew they would give me a whole different type of experience. I've worked with the university with their dining service. I worked at this motel / upscale restaurant, and I've worked in insurance. So I don't know, it's all different industries, and I liked getting a taste of everything, but it was just kind of difficult going into industries that I didn't feel I was a good fit for. I don't know.
It's good, Olivia. We'll say Olivia's experience is common, right? We'll even transition to the full-time job. You're going to apply to a lot of places and you're not going to make it to a lot of places, but that's okay. What Olivia and I worked through was, what does that mean? How can we be better? It may not have been her at all. And that was usually the case. It was nothing Olivia was necessarily doing wrong. They just picked somebody else. And sometimes you can't control that on the other side. You usually can't. but you can focus on certain things that you can control, which is what Olivia and I put all of our attention to, right? Making sure the resume was good, her presentation skills were good, she was answering the interview things right. And when she walked out of my office, I knew she's good. It's going to happen. She just has to trust in herself to make it happen. And she did. Look at her now. All worked out. So that's part of the journey. You're not going to bat 1,000, right? It's an up and down battle that you're going to have to navigate, and it is challenging. So keeping yourself confident, having a network beside you, mentors around you to keep you positive as you go through that. So we always say searching for a full-time job is a full-time job. It's no joke. Go ahead, Dr. Danvers. I see you.
Josh, yeah, I'd like to add a few things. Olivia made some great points, feeling like she didn't know enough coming out of school or going into these internships. Nobody feels like they know enough. And even after you've graduated for several years, you're still second guessing yourself. That's a great point. But she got exposure to a lot of jobs through these internships. And she may not have realized it at the time, but if she reflects back, she probably realized that she developed a lot of transferable skills, even though those weren't environments where she wanted to work permanently. Customer service skills, just interpersonal skills, things that will benefit her throughout her career. And that's important when students are building their resume. I've had students who I've helped with resumes in the past, and they said, well, I don't have any relevant experience. I said, sure you do. You were a server in a restaurant. You had to communicate with people in that environment. You had to be attuned to their needs and make sure that you were providing adequate customer service. And so students really need to be thinking about building that resume, and they may not realize that they're getting valuable experience during the college years that will help them professionally long term. And getting involved in the organizations and leadership opportunities and developing those relationships for references are going to be critical for seeking internships, whether it's after the sophomore year or junior year or a full-time position. You're going to want to have that resume built up. You're going to want to have people you can contact for references that you're comfortable asking, like Tree was talking about.
Yeah, they're all great points, Dr. Danvers. We call those the career readiness competencies. So most people will talk about them as soft skills. We call them life skills: teamwork, communication, diversity, equity, inclusion, right? Digital technology. There are things that you can enhance and you can learn. The struggle we see most students have is their ability to articulate them the right way in a resume, in an interview. That's why brainstorming with it is exactly what Dr. Danvers is talking about. Brainstorming with other professionals to help you extract those skills from your experiences to talk about them. Because you have them, whether you think it or not, or if we identify that you might be missing something, let's talk about how you can get it then, right? So we can close that gap. So great points, Dr. Danvers. Taylor, what about you? What was a challenging part for you?
So kind of to go off what everyone else had mentioned, just the fact that realizing that you're not expected to know how to do everything when you get there, that they want you to ask questions, and they'd rather have you ask questions and learn how to do it than just kind of skate by and hope you're doing it correctly or something. So, but pretty much everyone else definitely kind of got it there. So I agree with that.
That's great. Perfect. So let's transition to what were some of the resources that you used, or maybe you didn't use that you wish you did use, right? Whether it's on campus, off campus, what were some of those things that made a big impact for you when you thought about, landing that internship through reflection? So since Connor's looking like he's struggling, let's start with Connor. Then we'll go to Olivia, Taylor, and Tree. Good.
Funny. That's good. I'd say one resource that I wish I would have used more, probably the library. I think there's a lot of resources in there with the research aspect of, because I didn't like ADM. That's when I learned really how to use all the databases that Clarion provides and subscribes to. Wow, man, I just did that last semester, and it was like, man, this could have really helped me out with all my other projects. So, that doesn't really have anything internship related wise, but for class wise and workload, wow, that is a great resource to use that I definitely underused. So
That's good, Connor. And that even
yeah, you're gonna get out of me because I
it's
have
also
one, so.
transferable though. You know, the concept of learning research skills are important whenever you get to the job, because you'll be doing a lot of research on a lot of different avenues, especially as every panelist said, maybe they weren't quite as confident as what they thought. What do? You do some research, right? You try to find an answer before maybe you always go to somebody. So at least you're backed with something to have the conversation. So that's a great point, Connor, truly. All right, Olivia, what about you?
I had frequent meetings with our friend Josh, and actually mostly just for resume reviews. Like, I wanted my resume to be perfect. I swear we went over it like 10 times. I also did attend the job fair, Westpacs. And for me, I was looking for a specific job because I thought I wanted to like get out of town for the summer. But it's kind of more about making connections, because I'm a big believer that like your network and your connections are everything. That's pretty much how I've been successful in life, is by reaching out to people I know, and you know, everyone you meet is a possible opportunity. So definitely the job fair with just meeting different people, and then asking to connect with them on LinkedIn. Josh and I are big LinkedIn people. And I recommend that you add all of us on LinkedIn and get a good feel for it, because any job you ever want to get, you're going to get looked up on LinkedIn. I swear by that. And then resources. The Gold Eagle, like I said, was through connections at the SBDC. So I can't stress that enough. Your network is everything.
If you're not networking, you're not working. That's what we say. So get to work. Taylor, what about you?
So definitely, like, as I had mentioned before, the Career Services Center was a huge help, like, especially, you know, like Olivia had mentioned, resume reviews. Like, I probably have like a bunch of different versions of my resume based on what job you're applying to and stuff. But so that as well. But I really think some, like, just the, like, I guess with your network as well, just the fact that I was really involved in different things on campus. So I knew a lot of different people and professors. So actually what ended up really helping to get the internship with Pitt, Ohio was, I think I had a few different professors in the business school, like ones that I never even actually had for class, but had just known through organizations or events and stuff, would email me the opening and say, like, I think this would be a good fit for you. Let me know if you want to apply. And then I ended up applying, and I ended up getting it. And actually the Pitt, Ohio internship helped me get the Schneider Downs internship, which turned into my full-time job. But if I wasn't involved on campus and like talking to different professors and departments that I wasn't even in and stuff like that, it probably would never have happened. So I think involvement is also a huge thing, just so people know who you are, so they can recommend you for different positions and opportunities.
Awesome point, Taylor. You know, part of what employers are looking for, you know, very broadly, they're looking on your resume for education, work, and involvement. A lot of students will come and say, well, I don't have the work, which is why I'm trying to get the internship, which makes a lot of sense. So then you got to transition to what's your involvement look like? How are you trying to set yourself apart? How are you involved on campus? What type of research are you doing in class, or projects that you've done in class? So everything Taylor's saying, she was very methodical in trying to develop experience to get that first internship, because for her, that was truly a trampoline, a catapult into the next one, which led to the next one, which led to her job. So there is a process and a rhythm that you can go through, which is why for some majors, you don't want to start too late, right? The earlier it could be, the better, so you can develop what you need to get the actual internship you're looking for. All right, Chi, what about you?
Yeah, so building off what Taylor said and getting involved on campus, I would take that a step further and suggest getting involved with things that take you outside of your comfort zone. For instance, I served as student trustee for 2 years at Clarion, and when I applied, I was a sophomore. I did not feel as though I was qualified for that position. I felt as though I was going up against people who were far more qualified than me. I applied, I interviewed, and I got the position. And that took me to a whole bunch of different places and introduced me to a lot of people who I otherwise would not have met. And that really applies really no matter what. And when you take those positions that take you outside of your comfort zone, it allows you to take the next jump a little easier. You know, when you're moving to a next position, applying for that internship, it gives you that little boost of confidence. It makes you feel better about it. It's not as foreign to you as it would have been if you hadn't taken something before that was a little outside of your comfort zone. As I mentioned, I'm working as a research director for a political campaign. It is not something I was looking for. I did not apply for this position. I had never met the person I am working for, but you know, I saw a campaign. I'm like, oh, they're an interesting campaign. I reached out to the candidate and I just started a conversation, and it led into an actual position on the campaign that's keeping me rather involved in my community. So really just making sure you're getting yourself out there. A lot of what Taylor was saying, involvement is key, and it makes you, it helps you grow as a person, which is extremely important no matter where you apply.
Wonderful points, everybody. Truly, all great advice. Definitely things you want to be thinking about and listening to as you try to build your experiences for the internship, full-time job, even life after college. Because all the things they're talking about even relate to outside of the job, right? To building that network and pushing yourself to grow as a human being. That's what education and learning and life is all about. So that's great. Really great points. So now, what I'd like to talk about is the hiring process. So we're going to start with Olivia. So Olivia, you don't necessarily have to go through all three if you don't want to, but if there was a specific hiring process through your internship process that you want to share, you know, good, bad, things you weren't expecting, questions that may have got you, just talk me through what that looked like.
Okay, I kind of already did go over what the hiring process was like for me. I didn't mention that the one at Gold Eagle, there was not a hiring process. It was just kind of like, please do this for me. And so I did. I want to talk about the virtual one for UPMC. So they have you download a specific app, and then you have to record yourself answering specific videos. And I practiced the answers, I think, with Josh and some of like the example ones, because people had gone through the process before me, so we knew what it was like. And I like practiced my answers, and I made everybody in my dorm or my apartment like shut up so that I could do these like little videos. And it was actually kind of awkward. One of the questions was like, if you were a sandwich, what would you be? Or something like that. And it was just like, I don't know, what does everybody like? Because you want to be likable. But I think I said like an Italian sandwich. I don't even remember. But I didn't really like this process, but I can see how through an HR perspective, how it's very interesting, and you get to learn a lot about the person through these kind of odd questions. And they kind of strayed away from the typical, like, what are your worst qualities and like, what are your strengths versus your weaknesses. So you don't have to say like, I'm a perfectionist and stuff like that. So it was definitely interesting. And I like that that's kind of how they weeded people out, because I didn't want to write like an essay or something to try and get an internship. This was at least a little bit better than that. I don't know.
It's good. The virtual, we're seeing this virtual format obviously become much more common. You know, it saves employers a lot of time and money. And for what Olivia went through is very common for larger organizations. But what she shared originally with the Golden Eagle, well, so she went through like no process to the strictest process that you could possibly go through.
That Gold Eagle, it was literally so difficult just to get a hold of Marnie. She was the owner, like, and she would just text me. She'd be like, yeah, if you can come in at like, 5 o'clock tomorrow, that'd be great. And you never knew what was going on with that. It was so funny.
So to Olivia's point, it's really, really important for you to be able to practice, especially virtually. What you may hear as we go through this is there are multiple phases. There could be videos, phone, videos, in person, or nothing, I guess, to Olivia's point sometimes. That's probably the least common thing that you would experience, but let's hear what Taylor went through. What'd you go through, Tay?
So for my like larger internships, like at Pitt, Ohio and Schneider Downs, it was like multiple phases. So first you would do like an application online, and then if that went good, then they would schedule a phone interview with you. And then if all went good, they'd schedule an in-person interview with you. And I did not realize how long the in-person interviews would be. I remember my Pitt, Ohio one, I was just like talking to the CFO and someone else for like an hour. Just, and I was like, okay. He's like, a little nervous and stuff. And then at Schneider Downs, the in-person one is actually like a 3-hour event. So they like, you go in and you interview with a manager, and then you'll interview with a shareholder, and then 2 people will take you out to lunch, and then I guess they all kind of confer and discuss from there. So that one was definitely interesting. And I guess during the professional development days, those little things about like eating etiquette were really helpful, because you're like, oh, I'm basically interviewing at a lunch. This is awkward. But another one I went through actually was, I'd say you guys are probably familiar with one where they have like multiple candidates come in on the same day, and you're all in a room, and then like you take turns interviewing with different managers or partners or something. And I think those ones are very intimidating, because you're just sitting in a room with like everyone that you're competing with for that position. So you're just kind of like second guessing yourself, like, oh, these people look smarter than me, oh gosh. But it's in reality, everyone's probably sitting there thinking the exact same thing, so it's okay. But it was definitely more surprising, like going to one of those and realizing it's not just you. There's like 10 or 12 other people interviewing for the same position, and so it definitely is nerve-wracking.
Good points, Tay. One of the things that she brought up is when you go into the actual interview, sometimes they'll rotate you through multiple people. And one of the tricks that they try to do is to make sure you're consistent with all the people. Are you telling the same story? Are your values, consistent? Can they see themselves working with you? Right. So part of it in an interview is they are interviewing you, but you should be interviewing them, right? Because you want to know if you want to work for that organization just as much as they're trying to find the right fit, right, for them. So that's part of the strategy that some employers will utilize. And Taylor went through that multiple times. How about you, Tree?
Hey, Josh, can I interject something here?
Of course, yeah.
Several years ago, the Accounting Society, was the accounting club back then, brought in a speaker from Taylor's firm, actually, Schneider Downs, and he was a recruiter, an HR manager. One of the things he shared with the accounting club was that in the recruiting process, he and others are trying to answer 2 basic questions. First, can the person do the job? Do they have the knowledge, skills, and ability to do the job? And secondly, will they do the job? Do they have the commitment to follow through with things? Have they been involved in a range of activities? He said, those are the 2 basic questions that they're asking themselves when they're evaluating candidates at Schneider Downs. Can the candidate do the job, and will they do the job? And they're looking at the GPA, the involvement, the commitment to a range of activities. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Perspective. Appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to write that down. Go ahead, Tree.
So what was really interesting about my, specifically my application process, I utilized my network, as I had mentioned. And so I was talking to this person, and I sent my resume, and they're like, okay, cool. And then I didn't hear from them for about a month and a half, which, is really stressful when you're looking for an internship and you particularly really like this opportunity and you want to work for this organization. It's got a call out of the blue. Hey, you're going to get a call from someone else. They're going to ask you to come in for an interview this week. I'm like, okay. No other information on the interview, what department within this specific department I would be interviewing with. None of that. So I was kind of falling into this internship. I got the call. I'm like, oh, okay. And I asked the person on the phone a few questions. She's like, okay, and it explained it a little bit more to me. So I did all the research I possibly could on who would be interviewing me, because I was told beforehand, and specifically what department within the larger department as a whole, because community and economic development, there's the economic side, which involves business development in the state of Pennsylvania, all that stuff. And then the community side, there's policy, there's marketing, there's working with local governments, which is what I did. A whole lot of different components, all in this same huge department that has like 1,000 people working for it. So I found out where I was, and it was a section that I was not familiar with, and did as much research as possible in a short amount of time to determine if it would be a good fit for me and how to best address any concerns or questions that they would have had. It was a little stressful, but all that information really is out there on the internet if you look up an organization that you're going to work for. With the world at our fingertips right now, it makes it really easy to do research with a deadline specifically surrounding any employer.
One point before we get to Connor, Tree's right. One of the most critical things you can do in preparation for an interview is to do research on the company. If you walk in there and you're knowledgeable about what they do, organizations that they partner with, community service events that they just held, and somebody else, your twin walks in, they didn't do any research and they have no idea, they say, when the question is, well, tell me what you know about Ryan organization. And Connor goes in, he just, everything about him, he could tell everything. But the next person comes in, they say, you know, I think you do tax for people, right? No, they do tax for business, right? Connor said that. So those little things go a long way, right? It's showing that you're invested in them, that you took the time to do the research for them, kind of that culture fit. So it's a really good point, Tree. Before we get to Connor, I just want to let everybody know after this question, after Connor responds, we'll open it up for questions from the group. So if anybody has any questions, you can get them ready. If not, that's okay. We're closing in on about 10 minutes left. So I just want to make sure if anybody has any questions. All right, go ahead, Connor.
All right. So, I mean, I had very similar experiences to all the other three guys here. But one thing that I will say that I think is very, I don't know who told me this piece of advice. It might have been Josh. I don't even know. But as soon as you walk through those doors, even walking up to the building, start looking at people and smiling and sit. And when you see that receptionist, you just make their day. I don't give them a compliment. That really has helped me out. I got 2 scholarships because I was really nice to the front desk lady. That she went in, and I heard this from the person that interviewed me, but she said, the lady came in and said, you were just the nicest person. And, I think that really plays in a part of what people want in their organization. They don't want some person that's mute, that just has their head down and works away. They want liveliness and someone that's a good person. So I think that's a good piece of advice if, you're going for an interview. Be really nice to everybody you meet.
Yeah, you're all part of what Connor's talking about. What we always say is you're always being watched too. As soon as you step on that the presence of the organization, you're being watched. Everybody, you don't know who you're walking, who you share the elevator with. We've heard stories that somebody rides an elevator, they close the door on the person, like jam the button. Then when they got to the top, the other person came up and that's who they were interviewing with. And they had no idea. So they didn't hold the door for the person. So you could imagine how that might have went. So just little things go along with, be a decent human being. That's exactly what Connor's saying. Be a good person. This is an exciting time. Yes, it's nervous. You're anxious, all those things, but it's all good, right? They're human just like you are. And I think that's Connor's point. He's exactly right. That's what they're looking for. So really good point. Any questions from the group before we wrap things up?
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, with your guys' internships and experiences, starting to leak into that COVID era with all those ever-changing things going on, do you think there's anything like Zoom or working from home that might sort of become the new norm, whether it's your job or in the internship process, that may not have been the case before COVID?
I'll speak for this one. I definitely, I know my office has 35 people in it. There's maybe at most 4 people in there a day. No one comes in. If you don't have to, you're not going to. And I think you're going to see this switched a lot more. However, though, I have been getting a lot of traffic going home this past week, so maybe not. Maybe people are coming into the office more, but I think you're going to see a lot more Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Get to know that platform.
Yeah, actually, I'll tag on that. I use Teams all day, every day. But yeah, for my Schneider Downs internship, it was supposed to be in person, and then obviously things got different, and they ended up shipping us a laptop, and we did everything virtually. So it was definitely different being trained through Teams, but I guess being able to share your screen and stuff like that, you definitely got used to it. And I mean, it's better than them just canceling the internship completely. But yeah, a lot of firms are might not be having everyone go back to the office or doing some sort of hybrid type of model and stuff. So it's definitely different. So
yeah, I think with everything being online, it's going to provide a lot more opportunity from where we can work. You know, I look at a lot of things from community development standpoint, and I've taken classes on this, and a lot of what we discussed, specifically looking at the Philadelphia, Harrisburg, Baltimore metro area. We're looking at smaller cities that surround, that are in between, you know, Reading and York. And those cities are having a boom in population because people can simply work for any of the big accounting firms or medical firms from their homes, and they want a place where they can have a lot more space. And as that becomes the norm during the pandemic, that's going to transfer over, because as people move up, they're going to be used to, accustomed to that lifestyle as well. The one negative caveat to that, well, two negative caveats. For one, it's become both easier and more difficult to contact people at the same time, because personal life bleeds into work life. And, you know, not all the information you can find online about an organization is currently accurate, since there's no one in the office, and that phone number might go to the office. And the second thing is completely escaping my mind right now. I forgot what it was. If it comes back to me, I'll make sure to say it.
That's good. Go ahead, Olivia. I saw you wanted to speak too.
Yeah, so kind of different for me. Nothing was affected by COVID. We still went into the office every day. Insurance was deemed essential like a week into the pandemic. So I've been at work in the office every single day. But something I want to mention is that you want to make sure that wherever you intern is going to be a good fit for you. And I want you all to kind of take into account, like, is the company you're interviewing for, what did they do during COVID? And does that align with like your personal views? Did they keep their employees safe? Did they keep them in mind? Did they go through all the protocols and kind of decide what's important to you? Because I was talking about this with my coworker, and, you know, Burns didn't really do anything until the second wave. And I don't know if I'm actually comfortable with that. So it's just something to kind of keep in the back of your head, that you want to make sure where you're working is also a good fit for you, not just you're a good fit for them.
I came up with what I was trying to say.
Go for it.
In that interpersonal connection, which is also important for, you know, any internship and any professional opportunity, it's become a lot more difficult over Zoom. You know, you don't necessarily feel that connection with the person you're seeing on your screen, as opposed to if you were seeing them in person and talking to them at your desk. You know, and there are a lot of ways to get around that. Maybe find time to have a social interaction as opposed to just a simply business interaction. You know, being in grad school, I've tried to develop, you know, having a Zoom game night with some friends in grad school, because, you know, I know them via Zoom, but I don't know them in person, and it helps build those connections. You know, that's a less professional way, but something along those lines could be applicable to the workplace as well, because those interactions, people are going to remember that, you know, especially when we're feeling so isolated. So if they feel connected to you, that connection is going to be even more important going forward.
Good point.
You're right, Tree. We can't diminish the importance of the spontaneous water cooler conversation, can we?
I was just going to say that, Dr. Neres. One of the things that I took for granted was how easy it is to walk into somebody's office and just ask them a question. The amount of time it takes now to draft the email, or, you know, try to get to them with Teams, or you have to draft the email to give the instructions, where you could just do a quick brainstorm session with somebody just by walking in the office. So I think what you're going to see through COVID is it's a gift and a curse, right? There are going to be organizations that are going to provide a lot more remote opportunity for people, and that's good for some people, but it's not good for everybody, right? So there's that balance that you have to find. What is that secret sauce for you? How much in person do you need? How much interaction, to Tree's point, do you need? Or are you good? One of my colleagues, she's good. She stayed remote forever, she said. She said she's totally fine with that. Other employee, they don't want to do it any longer. They need that in-person interaction, and that's okay. So I think you're going to see a balance of both. You just need to figure out, to Olivia's point, what are you looking for, and what are they providing you from support? Because I think that's ultra critical. It's a really good question, Jake. Any other questions from the group? Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, what do you think are some of the best questions to ask employers, like potential employers, at the end of an interview when they're like, so do you have any questions for us?
That's a really good question. So one of the ones I usually ask is, I'll say, like, what would be the day, what would a normal day in this position look like? I don't know, just because, for kind of going off of what Olivia said, honestly, is just, I mean, would you see yourself being happy or like interested in doing those tasks for every day during the internship or not. So because I guess like previously said, you kind of are also like interviewing them, like you want to make sure you're not accepting an internship where you end up doing something completely different than what you wanted to be doing. So, but I don't know about if you guys have other questions that you.
Something, oh, sorry.
No, you got it. You got it.
Something I typically would ask is who would I be reporting to? Because you're not always, sometimes you're interviewing with HR and like I'm in marketing, so I'd be working with a marketing team, or who am I reporting to? That's an important question. And like I mentioned before, if you're interested in how they actually operate with COVID, are they hybrid, work from home? You'll probably know that. And then like Taylor said, my default question is like a day in the life at work, because you can't think of anything else to say. That was my experience.
Yeah, I always, depending on how I feel with the interviewer, I mean, this one's always depending on how you feel with them. But I always ask them, so why are you here? Why do you enjoy working for this company? You know, it gives a good insight, because if they struggle to really get out a good answer, then you can tell, well, maybe they're not all they're cracked up to be. And then I always ask, so what's the timeline for hearing back? When's your decision? Because sometimes, like Tree, month and a half, he hadn't heard a thing. He probably thought the guy died over there. So, I mean, that's important, because you can't be waiting on just one job. You got to have other lined up too.
And the one thing I wanted to say is when you're doing your research on a company, there's always going to be things that are unclear on their outward-facing website. And perhaps it's a way for you to learn more about the company during the interview itself. You know, discuss like, hey, I saw you have this nonprofit initiative. What's that about? How can I get involved with that? You know, for instance, the grocery store chain in my area, they have their employees volunteer at the food bank. If I was applying there, I'd ask how I get involved with that program. You know, how many hours, how does that work? When I was an intern for the state, you know, I worked in local government. However, the Pennsylvania Department of Energy Research Center was located within the same sphere of community and economic development. And I asked if I could talk to someone from that department to learn more about it. It didn't apply to what I was doing, but I thought that was a really interesting topic area that I wanted to know more about. And asking those questions really shows that you're dedicated to the mission of the organization, and you want to get more involved beyond your position too. And it helps create that company-wide, organizational-wide sense of community and understanding, which is really important to any organization.
Very good. You know, what we typically say, to break it down to very simplistic terms, there are position-focused questions and culture-focused questions. You heard everybody give examples of both of those types of things. If there are things that are unclear that you need answers to for the position, what's a day in the life look like? Could you explain a little bit more about what I'd be doing, who I would be reporting to? Or culturally, could you explain in one word how you would describe the culture of this organization, kind of to Connor's point? And the one I want to mention that Connor said, the last question you always ask is, what's the process from here? Right? And that's for the exact reason Connor stated and what Tree experienced. You need to know a timeline, because then that gets your follow-up. When do I write the thank you? Is it 2 weeks, a month? Because then that adjusts your timeline for what you need to do on other things. So it's an awesome question that you asked, Mitch. You know, definitely want to be considerate of the questions you asked. You always ask questions. Never leave that opportunity out. You always do it. So for the sake of time, I want to ask one last question from each of the panelists, just to kind of wrap things up. One piece of advice that you would give our listeners today about searching for an internship or through your experience, what's that one thing that you want them to take away? And let's start with Tree.
Oh boy. You know, I wouldn't shy away from creativity where you're trying to determine where you want to work as an internship. As I mentioned, stepping outside of your comfort zone is very important. And that includes taking positions that you would have otherwise not looked at. You know, not something that you wouldn't otherwise enjoy, but something that you wouldn't have thought of before. For instance, you know, we had a career fair at Penn, and there was a tech company there, and it sounded really interesting. So, you know, I had a conversation with the rep, and it's actually a really cool organization. I don't think I would work there, But if I was looking for a job that was outside of what I was doing, yeah, I would definitely apply. I thought it was a really interesting opportunity. They have great benefits. They have a program where they pay for you to go to a country abroad for a month, which is super cool. And even coming from a different background. And, you know, there are a lot of organizations who look for a differential experience. And an internship is an excellent way, as Olivia has done with her internship as well, applying to all those different places that you wouldn't have otherwise gone to. That really opens you up to a whole world of opportunities that if you try and put yourself into one singular box that you wouldn't otherwise be able to experience.
Good. How about you, Taylor? What's that one piece of advice?
I would say, so obviously, I guess, depending on your timeline and your major, but if you're able to, try to have at least like 2 different internships, just like one, just to kind of, it'll help you figure out more of where you want to go in your career. Like for instance, I did a public accounting internship and a industry accounting internship, and that's what made me decide I wanted to do public accounting. But I mean, before that, I didn't even really know much about the difference. So I think like, and I'm sure like in different majors it's different, but you know, like what kind of company you want to work for, just to get yourself experienced in like, it'll just help you realize like, okay, I could see myself doing this every day, or no, I don't want to do this every day. I'm going to go a different direction. So.
And that last point Taylor made is helpful, right? There are students that will have a negative or maybe an internship experience they didn't think went as well as they thought. That's equally as powerful as having a great one, because now you know that's the direction you don't want to go. So don't discredit those things, because it still gave you the experience. So Taylor brings up a very valuable point, right? There are lessons that we can learn from all these experiences. That's what you have to remember. Let's go to Connor, and then we'll end where we started with Olivia.
All right, great. So just like I did with scholarships, apply for a lot. I mean, you don't know what you're going to hear back, and it kind of can, if you only have one, it puts you in a corner and it pinches you and says, well, this, you know, you'll usually go with it if it's the only thing you have, if you don't necessarily like it all that much. If you have a wide variety of options to go through, or even 2, it gives you a little bit of break, and then, you know, you can really choose what you like. So I'd say apply for them all.
Go ahead, Liv.
All right, I have 2, and you can't yell at me for it. So first, I wanted to say, learn good time management. And I say this because I literally had 4 jobs while taking a full course load in my senior year. But if you have good time management, that is like possible, because they were all part-time jobs. It's not like I was working like, you know, an 8-hour job and then moving on to the next one. But if you have good time management, you really can try to do it all. And so I would implore everybody to kind of research how you can do that, or learn more about yourself and how you can manage school, personal, you know, eating and sleeping, like your necessities, and then also getting those extra experiences. And then I also want to say, just get as much experience as possible, whether that be, you know, joining all the clubs, applying for every internship you see, or, you know, going abroad, because I did all that too. But every experience is a good experience, even if it's a bad experience, because you get to learn from it. You know, maybe that's not what you want to do, or maybe this is not the type of company you want to work for. I thought I wanted to be in a corporate company, you know, 30th floor of a building in some city, but I love it here in Clarion with, you know, 20 people in the office. Like, every experience is a good experience, and every connection you make is an opportunity. So.
Excellent. So that wraps it up for the day. Rye, if you want to say anything else, one of the things that I just want to mention, you know, for the group, you know, we're here to help you, right? Your career office, the staff here, we're supporting, we've engaged with all these great panelists today. You know, we were just fortunate being part of their journey, and we want to be a part of yours. So resumes, interviews, cover letters, grad school, you name it, we're here to help you. Any question you have, right? We're here to help, and we're designed to function based off of you and your needs. So it is a journey. It's called a career journey for a reason. As you heard today, not everything is so linear. That's not life. Life isn't that way. But there are people here that want to help you through that process, and the resources you're paying for. So use them. right? One way or the other, you got them. So if there's anything you all need, you know how to reach out. Feel free to contact me, but I'll pass it back to Ryan in case you want to do anything for closing.
Just basically what you just said. For the people who are watching now or the people who are going to watch later, hit up Career Services, hit up Josh. They're a great resource. He helped me with my resume back in January when I lost my old one. Use your classmates as resources too. Your classmates can be great resources too. They'll help you out. Your professors, make as many connections as you can. Networking is key. And that basically what Connor said earlier when he was talking about his receptionist, be a good person. And with that, that's my closing statement. And that will wrap up our internship panel.
Perfect. We appreciate it, panelists. Round of